This is just doublespeak, as she points it out from the president?
Well, I mean, I think that he's being politically smart right now. I mean, what we do know, what polls well, is the idea of, one, extending the tax cuts, and secondly, on taxing those who, in this case, are millionaires or above. And so, I mean, while all around, yes, we've got a deficit that we're dealing with, I think that one way or another, as we know, publicly, it's very popular, the idea of extending these tax cuts. And I think both Republicans and Democrats are trying to find a way to just make it happen. I mean, but again, we're going back to the same issues as she mentioned, during the super committee, is this sort of this standstill and this unwillingness to work across the aisle.
That's true. I mean, and we hear that they want to get this done. But again, I bring up the point that this is an election year. This is the holiday time. That to a large extent, this is being done against that backdrop, and they don't want to look like they're being Scrooges at this time of year, Sue.
Well, I don't really feel that the holiday has a whole lot to do with what they're doing in Washington. They live in a bubble. I've been there, I know. You're in a bubble and you're working every day on policy, and what you're doing is listening to the people that you represent. Those people are hurting right now. It has less to do with the fact that there's a holiday time, and more to do with the fact that they won't be reelected if they don't get something done.
Although I did speak to some of these congressional leaders over the weekend and last week, and a lot of them are saying they're feeling pressure because they don't want to appear like they're being, the Grinch that stole Christmas by not going forward with this, even though they acknowledge the fact that we still can't balance the budget based on this particular cut, and that something needs to be seriously done to address the issues. So, Marjorie, with that in mind, do you believe that we're going to see some meaningful action, let's say even at the beginning of the year? I mean, the super committee wasn't able to do it, but we have got to face facts that we are broke.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's going to have to be action right away, and especially in dealing with this tax extension. And at the beginning, I mean, as we've seen historically, Congress doesn't seem to act until their backs are against the wall. And what's happening is not just one party looking bad, both are looking very bad. And with the primaries and everything else that's happening politically, not only can the candidates not afford for, one, the congressional approval rate to stay as low as it is, but also for there not to be any movement one way or the other, or not any compromise one way or another. But, I mean, I agree. I agree that I think the holidays are actually, in fact, something that voters do think about. I think voters have a very short-term memory. And right now, the hurt that they're feeling right now is that, looming season of gifts and holidays that they need to worry about. So I think in terms of timing, it's a good time to really press Congress and try to get something to happen, at least with the extension of the tax cuts right now.
All right, let's focus now on the presidential contest. We now know that Newt Gingrich continues to climb in the polls. With the latest poll that we can put up there for our viewers, this is coming to us showing Newt Gingrich at 26%, Mitt Romney with 18%. Now, if we got the poll up there, can we? We're having little problems. There we go. You can see the big lead that Gingrich has taken in just a few weeks, and it looks like he is benefiting from Kane's withdrawal or suspension of his race. Let me ask you, sir, you worked with Newt Gingrich before when you served in Congress. How do you explain his rise in the polls right now?
I can only explain it in the fact that there must be a lot of people in Iowa that have no idea what he did when he was Speaker of the House. One of the really telling features of Gingrich's campaign is the fact that a lot of the people who went into Congress in 1995, as did I, are not backing Newt Gingrich. He counts on people who don't know about his performance when he was Speaker. I sat repeatedly and listened to him get rolled by the Clinton White House. He would go down, we'd send him down to the White House and say, this is what we need, this is what we want. And he'd come back and he'd stand in front of our conference and he'd say, oh, he's such a nice guy. And we'd know right away that he got rolled. And we were not going to get what it was we needed. As a matter of fact, there are 7 people that I know of in that group of freshmen that was the largest freshman class before this one to go into Congress. And they are not backing. I know at least 7 people in that class who will not back Newt Gingrich because we know him. We've worked with him. He lectures. He has wonderful ideas. He's a smart man. I like Newt as a person. I would be very upset to think that he would be the GOP presidential candidate because that hands Mr. Obama the White House for a second term.
Marjorie, there are people who are suggesting, like Sue, that people have a short-term memory. This is a man that was, forced out of his speakership. He has his own personal baggage that he needs to discuss openly once the spotlight is going to be fixated on him as he remains the front runner. He says, he has often talked about these things, saying that he has grown, he's found God, he has more experience. But the way that the media scrutiny was on Herman Cain and the way that he had to respond in this way, day after day after day. Why are we not seeing that same type of scrutiny on Newt Gingrich at this point?
Well, I think that his surge is a recent one, and I think it has everything to do with him being sort of the now non-Mitt Romney candidate. Before it was eyes on Bachmann as she, set aside, then Perry, and now that we've lost Cain.
But how can conservatives give him a pass on this? I don't understand it quite. Not that he's not smart, not that he's not, full of ideas, but playing to that audience in Iowa, very, very conservative people, social conservatives as well. How are they giving him a pass on this? Are they that desperate for an anti-Romney candidate?
I think so. And sadly, Romney, his interview this last week did not show well for him. He came off as defensive. He sort of spoke down to Brian as they were in the interview. And I don't think it sat well. And when you're someone that doesn't come out in the press a lot, and when you do, you come off that way, I don't think that's a very positive thing. Honestly, I think, as mentioned, right now in Congress, though, he's not seeing the same kind of support. We've got Mitt Romney, who's got 41 endorsements from the House of Representative members, 8 from the Senate, and Gingrich with only 7 endorsements, 4 of which are coming from his home state in Georgia. So I think that the memory in Congress is actually a good one. I think right now the public hasn't seen him, and you have to look at it. The wave of voting public, there is a new younger group of voting public, and I really do think there is a short-term memory issue. But I think a lot of this will come to the forefront. He's already sort of starting to step in it, and I think, his whole claim to fame is being the big idea guy. And I think in a way he's sort of the mad professor. We know he's smart and he's brilliant, but he's full of a lot of ideas, and I love it. One of, I think it was Scott Horg, who was one of the members of Congress when Romney was Speaker of the House, came out and he said, look, the guy's got 10 ideas a day. 2 are good, 6 are weird, and 2 are very weird.
Well,
so he said, who knows what's coming.
She's obviously echoing what you say. People have not had a short-term memory in Congress. People do know what his record was like there.
That's right. The people who worked with Newt Gingrich and know him, we all like Newt. But he makes these remarks that that are indefensible. Or really, everybody gasps when they come out of his mouth, like making kids work as janitors, or he's attacking the Ryan healthcare plan. The other day, he said that he talked Donald Trump into doing 10 apprenticeships for underclass, and Trump was willing to do it because it fit Trump's own childhood. What is he thinking?
One of the wealthiest men in America.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. And he proposed free laptops for poor children. Basically, he's running his own type of class warfare when he makes these remarks. Yeah. You can't. These things are indefensible.
Well, let me ask you,
who pays for the laptops? The government. These are big ideas with no one paying for them. We need to shrink government.
Let me ask you the same question I asked Marjorie really quickly before I move on to the next thought here. How do we account for his acceptance by social conservatives and really conservative voters in Iowa? The fact that they are looking for anyone but Mitt. And I know different people have had surges before, Michelle Bachmann, Herman Cain when he was in, and others. But what is it that is attracting them to him?
I believe that the people are looking for someone who's a glitzy movie star type of leader, and that's what they elected. In 4 years ago, they elected a glitzy movie star type of leader.
Newt Gingrich has like a movie star persona?
Well, compared to most of the rest of the field, he is. And if you put him up against Mitt Romney, The criticism I've heard of Mitt Romney, look, both Newt Gingrich and Romney have flipped on the same issues repeatedly, over and over again. You're talking
On
about
immigration particularly.
well, not only immigration, but what about abortion?
Yeah.
Those issues. Gingrich has flipped repeatedly.
And those and you can just certainly
the thing is,
easily you can take those kind of comments and put them in television ads, what he said in the past, Marjorie, and being able to play that out over the campaign if he does become the nominee, indeed. And the White House can just run away with that.
Yeah, I think the press is just getting started. I mean, as I was reading some this morning, I mean, in 1980, he wrote to the American Medical Association saying they should legalize marijuana. This is when he was a member of Congress. He came back in 96 and was spearheading a bill to give life in prison to anyone who caught with 2 ounces of marijuana and the death penalty on the second offense. So, I mean, it's sort of almost a comical list of crazy, big ideas. And I think it is bad. I think it's only a matter of time. I really do.
Well, let me ask you, we were talking about Donald Trump a moment ago. John Huntsman does not plan to participate in this debate or this forum that Donald Trump will be holding, essentially saying that I'm not going to kiss his ring and I'm not going to kiss any other part of his anatomy. This is exactly what's wrong with politics. What do you make of that comment? How do you feel about that?
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. Donald Trump has no business trying to anoint the next president of the United States. Absolutely wrong. And he should, if Donald Trump decided not to run for president, he should stay out of the presidential politics. I applaud John Huntsman for saying that. You ask me, though, I want to go back to the fact that what this party is looking for. Unfortunately, they are not looking for what we really need. Right now, we need a bookkeeper. We need somebody who knows how to run a business. We know somebody who knows how to budget their time and figure out how we can save the economy and produce jobs and start producing things in this country that we haven't been doing. And I believe that that's what the party is missing. They vote for glitz, but they won't vote for the strength of somebody's mind. And I think that's important. That's an important thing people should stop and think about.
And I think now also never than before, the Republican Party needs someone who can be a strong leader to lead them back in the right direction. And I'm afraid that, again, given the statistics and who's coming forward to support Gingrich, it's not looking good on that front. And I'm going to echo on Trump, by the way, because I hats off to Huntsman, and I wish right now that he was a palatable choice for the Republican Party, because I absolutely agree with him, and I think what he's doing, what Donald Trump's doing, is only emphasizing the gap in terms of the rich and poor in this country, and using his money and his power, frankly, in a way that I think is just not right.
Golly, you are so right, because this is turning out in both parties, it seems to me, to be a rich versus poor. It's class warfare. And we need to get this out of politics. We need to start focusing on the things that are important instead of waving the banner for one or the other.
It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out, particularly, Marjorie, as you point out that the press is just getting started, so we'll see how that plays out over the next few weeks. We're about 28 days away from the first votes being cast in Iowa. We, of course, are going to closely monitor every move that happens out there, and we'll continue to update our audience with the breaking news as it happens. Marjorie, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Sue, you might find this a bit interesting. These are questions and comments from some of our chatters.